if you will go on ahead, open to John chapter 10. John chapter 10. We are glad to have you here this morning. John chapter 10. Good morning, Naomi. If I can get someone to read 1 through 10, John chapter 10, verses 1 through 10, and then get someone else to read 11 through 18.
Most assuredly I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs up some other way, the same as a thief is as a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings them out, his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Yet they will by no means follow a stranger, but will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this illustration, but they did not understand the things which he spoke to them. Then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. I am at the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and he will go in and out and find pasture. The thieves do not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life, and that they may have life, that they may have it more abundantly.
11 through 18, if I can get volunteer.
I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But a hireling, he who is not the shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring. And they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. Therefore my Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This command I have received from my Father.
All right, thank you. So as we come to this text, verses 1 through 5, they did not understand, is what the text tells us. So that when you come down then through 7 through 18, that is Jesus expanding on the parable because they did not understand it. But there are some things to notice in this initial telling in verses 1 through 5. First of all, there's sheep, there's a shepherd, there's a door, and there's thieves. Those elements are going to stay the same. Within the fold in verse 3, to him the porter opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own, and he leads them out. Don't miss that within the church or within this parable, there's one that works within the flock, that their job is to aid in the coming and going of the sheep. He puts his sheep out for a time, he brings them back in for a time. And so when you start to look at this is an image of the church, and there are elements to this that people miss, especially in America. How many times have you heard people say, it's all about your personal relationship with Jesus. It's not about whether or not you go to church. That's a problem, because the flock comes and goes at his will. The flock comes back together into a confined space for a period of time. And there's those that facilitate the coming and going. That would be the porter. You say, who's that? Well, in most churches, that's the evangelist or preacher. The majority of churches don't have elders, all right? And so in the majority of churches, the porter is the preacher. But it doesn't matter to me. It's the preacher, the elders, the deacons. But you have people that their job is to facilitate and make sure that the pen for the sheep is fit, that there's different things that need to be done so that when the sheep come together, that opportunity, that function is there. There is always thieves. There is always thieves. I'm a fan of locked doors. I'm a fan of padlocks. I'm a fan of everything that you can lock being locked. Someone, well, brother, a real thief won't be deterred by it. You're right. But someone who's weak as a thief and has no skill, the moment they encounter something locked, you know what they do? Yeah, they go to the next guy. Right? And, you know, it's a very common thing. You know, someone walks through parking lots and they just try doors. Right? And when they find the door that's open, they keep walking. Then they come back. They walk and they act like, oh, wait, I forgot something. And then they come back and they act like it's their car. So that anybody who sees them, you know, doesn't think anything about them randomly walking through to pay attention. Then they come back. The car door that they found unlocked, that's the car that they're going to get in and go through their stuff. Thieves are everywhere. All right? Whether it's from something that petty up to billions of dollars and being in coffers. Thieves are everywhere. Okay? And why do thieves come? Jesus tells us to steal, to kill, and to destroy. That's why they come. And so in the church, now this one is a little bit different. When Paul will talk to the elders in Acts chapter 20, when he talks to the elders of Ephesus in Acts chapter 20, he'll warn them that the wolves will come from other shepherds, that the wolves come from within the church. Always remember that. Wolves come from within the flock. That's where wolves come from. Thieves are external, wolves are internal. It's always the way it is in the scripture. And what makes someone a wolf in the church? They don't heed the word long enough, often enough. They won't submit to it, but they also won't leave. As time goes on, they'll turn into a wolf. They'll turn into a wolf. Okay? Thieves are always external, trying to get something out of. And so those elements are there, but they don't understand it. So Jesus then tells it again. And he begins by saying, verse 7, I'm the door of the sheep. I'm the door. For me, one of the number one ways I know whether or not you are where you're supposed to be, do you have keys and did you come in through the door? That's one of my number one gauges. If you came in through the window, you probably might ought not to be there. All right? But if you've got keys and you walk through the front door because you have and the other part of it is you know exactly which key opens which door. Years ago, a friend of mine, he was a property manager and he was going to be out of town, and so he talked to the owner of the property and said, you know, can I leave Brian the keys? I'm like 15, right? I'm 15, and he leaves me in charge of, you know, $250 million in real estate and all the tenants and all their needs. And I'm at the offices late one night, and police come up at like 10:30 at night, and they start hassling me. And I said, seriously, I said, I'm supposed to be here, you're not. And, well, you need to show us some proof. I said, my name's on the wall. I said, my file for the insurance company is in that office. I said, here's my ID. My house is 4 blocks away. And I said, and here's the keys to every single thing on this property. I said, would you like to walk? And I will unlock every single property, every single tenant, every single door, and I'll do it right the first time. No, that doesn't prove that you should be here. I said, if you can call and someone will vouch for me. They said, yeah. So I call a guy in Arkansas, in Jonesboro. Now I'm in Denver. And I call a guy, I said, hey, is this Billy? He says, yeah. I said, this is Brian. I said, I got a cop here. He can't get it through his head. I'm supposed to be here. He's not. Will you tell him I'm supposed to be here? And he gets on the phone. Yeah, Brian's supposed to be there. Oh, okay. And he hangs up. And he leaves. Yeah, and that's my thing. I could have called anybody. But when I got 40 keys on a key ring, if you know all 40 of them spot on the first time, you probably have a right to be there. You know? And someone. Now me and the cops of that city never did get along. We never did. And not because I was bad. It's just because they were those kinds of cops. You say, yeah, I was a cop. When I tell you some cops are just not good cops. That city never did have good cops. You know, and that's, but you know, when you think about doors, how do you know if someone knows you? There are some people, right? I'm never sure which door to go in some people's houses in all the churches I've had. Because they're never sure which door they go in. Mitch, I know which door to go to at your house. That's how I know that I'm okay to be there. If I'm not, I stop at the edge of your driveway and I try and go in the door that, well, that's not the door you go in at. Right? And so keep that in mind. Doors serve purposes. And Jesus will then say, all that ever came before me are thieves and robbers. The sheep didn't hear him. And he's talking about different people that have come claiming that they're the fulfillment, that they're the plan. But I would even include most all of the kings of Israel and Judah in this. Did the people ever follow them in any real way that led to life? You know, or did the people go the path of destruction? Even the good kings were still kind of imposters, in a sense. I mean, really, it's not until Josiah and Hezekiah that you start actually getting the country cleaned up. Because some of the other kings, some of the other good kings, what? They're like, well, we'll make the reforms to this point, but if we go past this, I'll have a revolt by the people. Right? And so, you know, that's an interesting thing to contemplate. Jesus says again, verse 9, I am the door. Now here's why I'm making a point about doors and keys and rights and all that. Unless you're a thief, the only way to go in a door is with the correct key, is with the correct access. That's it. And I know some people, well, brother, what about, places that have electronic locks? If the guy in the central pod doesn't recognize you, you're not getting that door unlocked. That's how it works. You don't have the right, the door does not open for you. So it is with the flock of God. How many different ways can you enter God's flock? And I throw this in something that people don't ever argue with me about. Now, I have no desire to ever skydive. One person said one time, they said, it's because you're chicken. I said, dude, I've already done so much adrenaline stuff that could kill me. I said, I'm not going to pay you money to jump out of a plane just to say I did it. But if I were to go and take skydiving lessons, I'd want the manual. I like to have manuals. And I like them to not just be PDF. Right? I like hard copies. And I'd want the manual to say something like, this manual is endorsed by 10,000 skydivers who have proof that they actually lived by doing what the book says. And then I'd find me an instructor. And if the first instructor said, look, I know that's what the book says, but it's only culturally relevant. And since skydiving began a long time ago, comparatively speaking, we just kind of use it as a rough guideline of how to put the pack on. But we really don't follow it anything else at this school. Okay. Now I go to the second guy, and he says, we use the book, but we believe in this school that if you just trust that your chute will open at the right time, you don't have to actually release the chute by pulling the cord, and that's how we believe people will land safely. Good. Now I go to the third guy, and he says, we use the book. Sometimes the book is kind of a pain, because it has all these checklists of everything we have to do every time. It has all this stuff about how we're supposed to do this with the pack, how we're supposed to do this with the chute, how we're supposed to check our rigging, how we're supposed to verify that the guy flying the plane actually did his checklist, so that we don't have to use it because it's an emergency. It kind of takes the fun out of it. And we've got our altimeters, and we've got the main, and then we've got the reserve, and we follow for what we're doing exactly what the book says. Now I'd ask you, which one of those three would you want to go to? The first one that says, well, we have the book, but it's not really relevant anymore. The second one that says, if you just trust that your chute will open on time by you doing nothing, you'll land safely. And every once in a while someone will go, well, someone did fall out of a plane and their chute didn't open and they didn't die. Right, and 10 years later, when they were done being pinned together and all the physical therapy, which one would you go with? Third one. But yet when we come to religion and the Bible, how many people take those different approaches? I can get in a door with an axe. All right, Jack Nicholson showed me that. All right? But if someone's chopping your door with an axe, you understand you have the right to shoot them. Okay? Because why? That's not authorized. So with Jesus, if Jesus is what I think he is, that he's a guy that wants to communicate clearly, you say, he spoke in parables just so he wouldn't communicate. Yeah, and then every time he explained them, it was so that they would understand it. There's only one right way to come into the flock of Christ. And he's the one who sets the terms, no one else. It's his flock. He's the shepherd. It gets done. It gets run the way that he says, not the way that anybody else wants to argue. So he says, if by me any man shall enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. Entering in is about entering into the flock. Once you're in the flock, you come and you go. You go back and forth. But the thief comes not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. The first thing a thief has to do is he has to steal. Now, why does a thief have to steal? And specifically, what is the thief? And this is singular thief. This thief does not come except for this reason: to steal, to kill, and to destroy. Now, it would seem that maybe these are a little bit backwards. What's the first thing that a thief has to steal where a flock is concerned? Okay? Trust. If my goal is to destroy the flock, how do I get there? First, I steal. I steal one sheep at a time. I get that sheep, I kill it. Then I steal another, I kill it. As I keep going, after a little bit of time, what happens to the flock? It's destroyed. You have to steal, you have to kill, you have to destroy if you're a thief. Now, when we look at this, because Jesus is obviously contrasting this between him and the devil, between his porters versus the wolves and the thieves, the first thing the devil has to do is he has to steal. Now, he doesn't steal you directly. What's the most important thing that the devil can get wrong in your head? Do what? Do what? Okay.
But you don't matter.
Do what?
But you don't matter.
You don't matter.
And you don't have to do anything.
Don't have to do anything. All three of these come down to one thing. He steals accurate understanding of the Word of God. Because if God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, then that means what, Jenny? Hypothetically, we have value. We matter. Right? But if he gets it in your head that you don't have to do anything, even though Jesus says you have to come in the right way. Someone says, no, you don't actually have to do anything.
It brings confusion.
Do what?
It brings confusion.
Brings confusion. So the devil steals the word first. He steals the word first. Because if faith comes by hearing and hearing comes by the word of God, he has to steal the word first. Once you don't have the word, you can't have faith and you're done. It's over.
And he even uses the word against you.
He can use the word against you.
Just like the devil tried to tempt Christ. He used the word against him and said, you turn the stone to bread. And
Yeah.
Christ responded to it,
Yes.
clarifying what the word meant.
Yes. All right. Now, once he steals the word, now what? Now he can kill you individually as Christians. He goes back and kills your soul. And in this region, I would have said, until I realized, where all of it came from, but y'all remember what happened in Gainesville with that group. Now, they had a couple good points. We should be more conscientious about discipleship. That group had one good point. We should be more conscientious about discipleship. Where did they go with it? And they went to the funny farm. But the number of churches, and I figure Florida is more stable because other than when the hurricanes come, Florida is a very stable environment. I think that's why Florida is so kind of level. It's just very stable. How easy, though, is it for a church? What's the first thing that you have to do to get a church to go into false doctrine? Do what? Let false doctrine in, and make sure you pull the teaching of doctrine that people don't like. Because the sheep can't recognize the wolves and the thieves and the pit vipers if they believe that they're safe because they've purposely not been upset by hearing what they don't want to hear. Right? And so thief has to get that. He has to get the word before he can kill. And for him, it's spiritual death. Now, if you get the chance to go see the movie Nefarious, I'm going to say that a few times. Fantastic movie. Fantastic movie. I've said this for years in churches, and everybody misses it. Rich, I know you're going to remember that at least a dozen times I've said it in the 5 years I've been here once I remind you what it is, because as you and I talked about, you remember every lesson I've ever given perfectly. Just like I remember every meal my wife has ever fixed for me perfectly.
It's like that.
Just like that. Satan does not care about you individually. Most of us aren't blips on his radar because most of us have been lulled into the culture of lukewarm. It's a dangerous place. Satan's number one desire for us is not because he cares one whit about any of us. What's the only way he can hit God?
Through us.
Through us. As beings made in his image, every being that by choice or by non-choice chooses eternal destruction with Satan is the only way that the devil can hit the Father back. That's the only way. That's it. He doesn't dare attack the Father because the last time he tried to attack the Father, it didn't go well. So what's the only thing he has left? Now he's got the bulk of humanity. So Jesus' warning is for the sake of the church. It's for the sake of the flock. When Christians go down, and very seldom does a Christian ever go down in one day. It starts with things like, I know that's what we teach, but I really don't believe those scriptures. You're on the path of destruction and you don't even know it already. Yep. You're right, Mel. I shouldn't have tapped my fingers on the thing.
She woke her up.
Yeah, it's my fault.
It's okay.
It's all right, Mel. Yeah. When someone says baptism's important, but I'm not really sure it's essential, and then they hold a position like an elder in a church. What? Oh, that church is already on the road to destruction. Because what's the devil done? He's got the leadership thinking like wolves and thieves. And that whole church will go. And the devil rejoices. Not because he got a church, but because he got to gut punch Jesus. Because that's where the destruction comes in. When he can sweep an entire church, when he can sweep an entire whatever, and he can destroy that, so it's not coming back. And we look at this because everything the devil is going to do, he has to do in this life with you and with humanity. Because when Jesus comes again, that's the end of everything the devil can do. So that verse 10, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. Jesus has an alternative to stealing, killing, and destruction. And it's for this life. This life. Now, I know not everybody in here is a multimillionaire this morning. But it is beyond time that most of us should quit pretending that, I'm satisfied with just a cottage below. I've got a 3,000 square foot house. And my trucks and cars cost over $100,000. But Jesus, I don't want much, even though I'm actually really wealthy. But in that city, can you give me one that's made of gold? Please. Please. Some brother, we just need enough to get by. Right. Then go back to the 800 square foot house, sell all your other assets, and give it to the church in India. If you're going to keep singing, I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, when you ain't had a cottage in your family for the last 50 years, quit singing that song because you're lying. You said, brother, I'd be satisfied with a cottage. Fine. Go rent one for 3 months on vacation. When you come back, tell me, brother, it was the greatest thing. I went from having nice living rooms and comfortable stuff that I went to this cottage, and the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, and the bedroom were all basically the same room. And they put us in there with 7 other people. And it reminded me of stories of my grandma when she said that they all slept on one place in the floor and half of them were underneath the kitchen table because they were so poor. That was their cottage. Here's why I'm making this point. The moment I begin to preach and tell you, right? How many times we got to read Psalm 23? The Lord is my shepherd, what? I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow. You're going to go through the valley of the shadow of death. Right? This world's dangerous. That's why you need a shepherd. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For thou art with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. You anoint my head with oil. Does that sound like poverty or does that sound like blessing? That's blessing. Okay. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. You prepare a table for me in the midst of my enemies. Cup running over. Poverty or blessing? Little blessing or abundant blessing? And then he goes on ahead and he says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forevermore. There's a now to following God. But the number of times I've ever tried to teach in church that you can be blessed by God materially and financially and do exceedingly well in this life because it's the blessing of God. People are like, brother, don't promise that from the pulpit because it might be God's will that you should suffer, be in poverty and misery until he comes again because he needs to teach you a lesson about humility. Okay, I'm with you. Tell me the number of people that Jesus was like, oh, I'm sorry, you 10 lepers, 9 of you are ungrateful, sorry sons of guns. Only one of you actually has a good heart. Until the other 9 of you learn how to be thankful, you're not getting anything. But come here, Samaritan, because I know you're going to say thank you. You got it. The other 9, nope, until you learn some humility. And you need to enjoy the poverty of being a leper a lot longer. Because I'm Jesus. Did he ever do that?
No.
So then why did we get it in our head that the abundant life meant just scraping by, giving credit to the world's economic system for when we do well, because it surely can't be God taking care of his children who want to serve him and bless other people, because everything we're looking forward to is only in heaven. That's not abundant life. That's schizophrenic Christianity or bipolar Christianity, whichever way you want to call it. And let's be very clear. For those of you who have trucks that cost more than $50,000, I rejoice for you. I'm happy for you. If you got a house that's worth more than 200 grand, I rejoice for you. If it was worth more than 200 grand before the mass exodus of Yankees because of COVID, when everything got falsely spiked, I double rejoice for you because now your house is worth 400,000 or more. Do you have 2 cars? Do you have how much in the bank account? I rejoice for you. Is it not high time that we say, he has been my shepherd, I have not wanted. My cup does run over. I've been blessed because I follow the shepherd. My life is abundant. And then to say, how can I pour out abundance and blessings on others? Back in Deuteronomy 8, when the Lord's talking about the children of Israel being wealthy, what is the number one thing that most people in the world look to, regardless of religion, to say that someone has been blessed by a God?
Your wealth.
Yeah. What's your quality of life? That's it. And God in his own book said back in Deuteronomy, I give you this so that everybody can see that I'm confirming my covenant with you. And this is a weird time to preach this because almost everything has gone up at least 50 to 80% in the last 3 months. And last night or night before last, the president, we've done great things with the economy, we've done great things with jobs, and Tucker Carlson's fired. Right? That's our president. Yeah, way to go. But what better time to trust that God can give us lives of abundance in things physical, material, and spiritual than when things are difficult? Because if the children of God thrive and grow when everything else says we shouldn't, then what does that say about the God whom we serve? That our God is greater than the world systems.